latest stories from across the globe and across Africa live from our studio. Welcome to Standpoint on Nimrod Television. I am OPEYEMI Lasisi. Now here to this world headlines. Syria's rebels push to encircle the capital, Damascus. Thousands flee as Syrian insurgents claim to raid the key city of Homs. Struggling to survive, war-damaged Lebanese businesses faces an uncertain future. South Korea president survives impeachment as lawmakers boycott votes. The Israeli military accused of using Palestinians as human shields in Gaza. Romania's Supreme Court announced presidential election outcome. Now, the news in details. Our top story this hour is from Syria. Hassan Abdghani, the spokesperson of the rebel coalition led by the Ayatollah al-Shaman HCS group, said that the final phase of their operation to encircle Damascus has started. The Syrian military denied that their forces are withdrawing from the Damascus region, calling the report of their retreat a false media campaign by armed terrorist organizations, with the aim of spreading panic and fear among civilians in the Damascus countryside. A guide to what's happening in Syria. A Syrian opposition flag flies above a market square in central Aleppo on November, which renewed the fight in the Syrian civil war, which has killed more than 300,000 people and sent nearly 6 million refugees out of the country since 2011, will have wide ramifications across the Middle East and beyond. Here is what you need to know if you're catching up on the conflict. At the height of the Arab Spring in 2011, pro-democracy demonstrators took to the streets in Syria calling for the ouster of its authoritarian president, Bashar al-Assad. The protesters were met with deadly force. As Assad forces crushed the pro-democracy movement, and armed opposition began to form, made up of small organic militias and some defectors from the Syrian military. Still on the Syrian news, we're moving to the Syrian insurgents. Thousands of people fled the central Syrian city of Homs, the country's third largest, as insurgents seized two towns on the outskirts on Friday, positioning themselves for an assault on a potentially major prize in their march against President Bashar Assad. The move, reported by pro-government media and an opposition war monitor, was the latest in the stunning advances by opposition fighters over the past week that have so far met little resistance from Assad's forces. A day earlier, fighters captured the central city of Amar, Syria's fourth largest, after the army said it withdrew to avoid fighting inside the city and spare the lives of civilians. The insurgents, led by the jihadi Ayatollah al-Shaman group, or HCS, has vowed to march to Homs and the capital, Damascus, Assad's seat of power, while videos circulating online show the highway jammed with cars full of people fleeing Homs, a city with a large population belonging to Assad's al-White sect, seen as his core supporters. If Assad military loses Homs, it could be a crippling blow. The city, part of which were controlled by insurgents until 2014, stands at an important intersection between Damascus and Syria's coastal provinces of Latakia and Tartus, where Assad enjoys wide support, adding that Homs province is Syria's largest in size and borders, including Lebanon, Iraq, and Jordan. On the other hand, pressure on the government intensified from multiple directions while opposition protesters stormed security posts and army positions in the southern province of Sweda. Opposition activists said US-backed Kurdish forces who control eastern and northern eastern Syria began to encroach on government-held territory. After years of largely being bottled up in the northwest corner of the country, the insurgents burst out a week ago, captured the northern city of Aleppo, Syria's largest, and have kept advancing since. Government troops have repeatedly fallen back. The sudden offensive has flipped the tables on a long-entrenched stalemate in Syria's nearly 14-year-old civil war. Along with ATS, the fighters include forces of an umbrella group of Turkish-backed Syrian militias called the Syrian National Army. Turkey has denied backing the offensive through experts says insurgents would not have launched it without the country's consent. Now moving on to Lebanese businesses. Stuck into the middle of a three-story high pile of rubble and charred possessions in southern Beirut is a twisted and cracked metal sign spare part Jiproke, which was the only indication that the ground floor of this destroyed building had been occupied by a BC part dealer, one of many such businesses destroyed by Israel's heavy bombing of Dahir, the largely Hezbollah-controlled southern suburb of the capital. Imad Abdul-Haq said, staring up at the smashed building, that they were so confident they wouldn't be hit because of the nature of the people there, who were just ordinary people and business owners. On the other hand, Abdul-Haq garage next door had survived the worst of the airstrike, although he was waiting to find out if the whole structure would have been torn down because of the impact. All over Lebanon, business owners are reeling after an intense conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, who saw Israeli bombs rain down on residential, commercial, and industrial parts of the country, destroying shops, warehouses, and stocks of goods. A U.S. and French brokered ceasefire, which is largely holding, altered the war last week, but for many of the country's business owners and workers in the pain is only beginning. Ibrahim Motada, another car part dealer in Dahir, whose building was hit, said he has lost $20,000 and his only source of income, and that has no idea how they can survive. Like Abdul-Haq, Motada was waiting for engineers to assess the building. It was clear to anyone standing underneath it that the structure wasn't safe. The top 7 floors had been destroyed by direct strike. Huge slabs of concrete and loose rubble hung precariously over Motada's head as they attempted to clear up what was left of his premises, adding that his business has been open here for 23 years and that they are counting on God to help them now. The business owners of Dahir and beyond are also counting on Hezbollah, the powerful Lebanese political and militant group, which said it will begin this week to assess the damage to homes and businesses and dollars cash for people to pay rent, buy new furniture, and begin to rebuild. Now moving on to South Korea. The South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol survived the vote of impeachment on Saturday after the vote was boycotted by governing party lawmakers. In another day of high drama, a number of lawmakers left parliament ahead of the vote to impeach President Yoon over his decision to impose a short-lived period of martial law earlier in the week. Just 2 remained inside while the one governing lawmaker Oriton voted against the motion. Meanwhile, large crowds of protesters gathered outside the National Assembly calling for the president's ousting. On the other hand, President Yoon has been facing intense pressure to stand down as leader after his shock bid to declare martial law in South Korea was aborted. The failed attempt, which would have been the first time in over 4 decades that the law was enacted, sparked fierce backlash. Opposition lawmakers have submitted another motion for Wednesday, December 11th, the next available date they can vote on using impeachment. The lone governing lawmakers who returned to vote against the motion, Kim Sang-wook, described this predicament, telling journalists at the National Assembly that he believes the conservatism that protects free Republic of Korea should be preserved. While he does not believe President Yoon qualifies as a president, he voted against the impeachment motion with accordance with his party's opinion. He said he had listened to the president, who apologized and said he would entrust the party to respond, adding that he wants to believe in his words. An opposition lawmaker, Kim Jo-young of the Rebuilding Korea Party, said there was no way the president could last until the end of his term, saying it was done, adding that the sooner he resigns or impeached, the better for their country. Now moving on to Israeli and Palestinians. The Israeli military has forced Palestinians to enter potentially booby-trapped houses and tunnels in Gaza to avoid putting its troops in harm's way, according to the Israel Defense Forces (IDF). Soldiers and 5 former detainees who said they were victims of the practice. The soldier, who said his unit held 2 Palestinian prisoners from the explicit purpose of using them as human shields to probe dangerous places, said the practice was prevalent among Israeli units in Gaza. It was so common in the Israeli military that it had a name, Mosquito Protocol. The exact scale and scope of the practice by the Israeli military is not known, but the testimony of both the soldiers and 5 civilians shows that it was widespread across the territory in northern Gaza, Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. The soldier explained further that at first his unit, which at the time was in northern Gaza, used standardized procedures before entering a suspect building, sending in a dog or punching a hole through its side. Although one day in the spring, the soldier said an intelligence officer showed up with 2 Palestinians detainees, a 16-year-old boy and a 20-year-old man, and told the troops to use them as human shields before entering the buildings. The intelligence officer claimed they were connected to Hamas. The soldier said that he and his comrades refused to carry on with the practice after 2 days and confronted their senior commander about it. Their commander, who foretold them not to think about international law, saying that their own lives were more important, ultimately relented, releasing the 2 Palestinians, the soldier said, and that the fact that they were released, he said, made it clear to him that they had no affiliation with Hamas and that they were not terrorists. Now moving on to the Romania's presidential election. The Romania's Constitutional Court has annulled the first round of the country's 2024 presidential election process, which was narrowly won by far-right ultra-nationalist candidate Călin Georgescu amid allegations of Russian interference. The historic decision means a second-round runoff that was scheduled for Sunday, when Georgescu would have gone head-to-head with his centrist rival Elena Lasconi, will no longer take place. In a press release, the court said the annulment was based on Article 146 of the Constitution, emphasizing the need to ensure the correctness and legality of the electoral process. On the other hand of the declassified documents from the Romanian intelligence agency detailed more than 85,000 attempted cyber attacks on election websites and IT systems, and concluded that the attackers has considerable resources specific to an attacking state. These findings prompted the U.S. State Department on express concern on Wednesday and warned that a shift away from the West would have serious negative impact on U.S. security cooperation with Romania. While in a later statement on Friday, the State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the United States reaffirms their confidence in Romania's democratic institutions and processes, including investigation into foreign malign influence. And that's all the time I have for you here on Standpoint. Thank you for tuning in to stay with Nimrod Television as we bring you more updates next time. Thank you.